Edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I am Mike Kadlick from CLNS Media, joined as always by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. We are here to break down the Patriots' 27-13 win last night against the Cardinals on
Oh,
Monday Night
don't do
Football.
that. Don't
I
do
put it in
that.
quotes, dude. I have a
It's
I
this
know.
time of year, man. You got to win games to get in the postseason.
Max says it. You're right. We talk about it all the time when they win because it's hard to win in the NFL, and they are 7-6, and they are the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture. They do control their own destiny. You're right. You got to find ways to win, but it's hard to take much it's hard to see what they did last night and have confidence moving forward in this team. And you think about it big picture. And I know we're here to break this game down, and it's you take it
Right.
game by game, and they did go 1-0, but you look big picture, and I still have a hard time thinking this is a team that's going to compete against the best in the AFC and the best in the NFL. The offense was a disaster. The defense was good again. Let's talk about the defense. Right off the bat, we'll start with that. With some news as well, because Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray, first drive of the game last night, goes out, non-contact injury on his knee. He's out for the rest of the game, and it comes out this morning that he did end up tearing his ACL. So he'll be out for the rest of the season, probably a good chunk of next season as well. So, I mean, that's just tough for a Cardinals team that was already down for the count. A guy like Cliff Kingsbury, who's on the hot seat as it is, now losing his quarterback, who's, as much crap as you want to give Kyler Murray for the video games and sometimes Patrick Peterson had talked about him not being, he's all about Kyler Murray, but I mean, he's a heck of a football player, and that's a huge loss for a team that just paid him a boatload of money, too. So, tough stuff there with Kyler Murray, but he goes down. Colt McCoy comes in. The defense, they let up only 13 points, and, they looked good again last night.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing with the defense, I think you talk about, can this team make a push to the playoffs? Can they win a playoff game? If they are going to do that, it's on the pass rush. Like the pass rush is the best unit this team has going for them now. They're playing at an incredibly high level, and the quarterbacks they have ahead, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they have to be able, even Derek Carr, I would argue, just in that offense, they have to be able to make the quarterbacks uncomfortable. And right now, Josh Uche is playing as good as any pass rusher in the NFL. Has 10 sacks in the last 7 weeks. That's the most in the NFL by that span. Nick Bosa is the next closest at 7.5. And keep in mind, Josh Uche had a bye week in there. So he's been outstanding. It's opening up opportunities for Matthew Judon. They still have room to get better because if and when Christian Barmore comes back, that's going to unlock a whole other level. So, look, I don't know that they get 6 sacks. If it's Kyler Murray instead of Colt McCoy, that certainly changes things. But you can watch the way the pass rushers interact with the linemen, kind of putting the quarterback to the side for a second. You just watch the games they're running up front and the way they're executing up front, and it's all being done at a very high level right now. So can they keep it up? They're playing really well, and they kind of went quiet in that Minnesota game. They're going to need them here over this next stretch, down the stretch here against a lot of good teams. But if the defensive line can play like that, they're going to be in any game. I don't really care who the opponent is. They're going to be in any game. Now, can they win any game? I don't know, because you bring in the rest of the roster. But that pass rush is real. That pass rush is legit, and it's scary.
Well, that's I'm with you on it. Like, again, there's no denying that Josh Uche has been a monster, right? And he's turned himself into like a dominant bookend on the other side of Matt Judon. And we've talked about it, just how when you have a guy on one side who can take away another team's best tackle, you have another guy who can bring the rush on the other side. It's fabulous stuff, and they have been great. I find myself a little bit iffy with this defense, and I just think that it couldn't have happened this way because he did leave the game, but I would have liked to seen them against Kyler Murray, because they remind me almost of, I forget who had said this before, but it was a good analogy, and it's kind of like a schoolyard bully, where the bad teams, you beat up on them, and then the good teams come around and you kind of get your butt kicked a little bit, like especially with these better quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, who rushed for 100 yards on them, and Justin Fields, who they weren't able to get after, and Josh Allen last week, who, as we know, I mean, they haven't been able to contain Josh Allen in their last 6 meetings. So, like, yes, it's great that they won, and it's great that Colt McCoy was able to come in and, allow them to dominate on defense, but when the playoffs come around and you do have to face a Joe Burrow or a Pat Mahomes, like the only guy I really can think of in the AFC playoff picture that they can handle is Ryan Tannehill and maybe Tua. So like I know we're here to break down this game, and the Patriots were awesome in the pass rush in this game, but looking forward,
Well,
I'm it's
again,
tough.
we're all pushed back on that. Is you watch just the offensive line and the pass rush interact. That has nothing to do with the quarterback, and they look good.
Sure.
Maybe it's something where they're getting psyched out against these better quarterbacks, but in that sense, they look good. And I'll tell you this too, because I was full on ready for this. If Kyler had played that game and didn't play
Yeah.
well, there was going to be a whole lot of, well, it's Kyler Murray. He's not that good. He sucks. He's too short and he turns the ball over a lot. Like there would, one way or another, Kyler Murray was getting disrespected after this game if he finished it, right? It's just a cop out for the people who want to punch down on this team that tank and miss the playoffs for the draft pick people. Like,
Right.
the pass rush played well. I don't care who the quarterback is. And if Kyler Murray had played well, I will tell you, there would have been a number of people today telling you that Kyler Murray is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
You probably would have heard it. Yeah.
I personally happen to believe he's a bit overrated. I don't think he's as good as everybody says. I wouldn't have given him the contract Arizona did. I was ready to say that no matter what happened. Right? If he
Right.
lit them up, I would be telling you he's not that good. But I'm sitting here today telling you when he left that, and it sucks he got hurt, and I hope he gets better. Obviously, I don't mean to dump on the guy after he got hurt. But, all of a sudden, Kyler Murray's this MVP that they dodged.
Well,
I don't put him on the Burrow level. I don't even put him on the Allen level. I don't put him on the Mahomes level, any of those levels, right?
Yeah, but you look at the way he can run around, right? And it's not necessarily the Burrow and Allen level of that, like a winning quarterback,
yes,
a talented
it would have been nice to see them
the
against
football.
a mobile quarterback, but
100%.
everybody's acting like this was an automatic loss because of massive quarterback firepower on the other side. And by the way, we're going to do this again next week with Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr, all of a sudden, and I sort of did it earlier, and I mean in the context of that offense, because he's got great receivers, but well, now they got to deal with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr this, and he got the big contract, and they got to be able to stop good quarterbacks. And then Carr will throw 2 picks, and oh man, Derek Carr sucks. This doesn't count. It's Derek Carr. So I'm done discounting the Patriots defense because of the opponent. I'm really done doing it because they're playing impressive football against impressive players. We can get into DeAndre Hopkins in a little bit. And yes, it was a lot easier for them with Colt McCoy in the game instead of Kyler 100%. Murray. But they did things aside from who the quarterback was that deserve applause.
I can't disagree with you, but then you look again and you look at their wins throughout the season, and now granted, Jared Goff looks like a great win because the Lions look sensational.
Okay, so they're not on a Super Bowl track. I'm not going to disagree with you there.
Right.
But, again, against a guy like Tua, right? Even a guy like Herbert, who they've dominated in the past, right? Yeah. If they somehow drew him in the playoffs, Tua's kind of backsliding here, right? Tannehill, I think I got them all. I against the Jets, right? The Jets don't have their quarterback situation figured out. No. You never know how it's, and then like Lamar's banged up right now. You never know how it's going to go. The matter of the fact is they're playing good defense more often than they aren't. Yes, they're playing worse against good quarterbacks. That's generally what happens in the NFL. Most teams play worse against good quarterbacks. I challenge you outside of those mid-2000s Ravens teams to show me a team that plays better against good quarterbacks. It just doesn't happen. So I just think it's a really weird critique, and I get why people want to be down on the team because they don't look like a contender, and I get it. But taking shots at the defense based off their opponent, there's enough ammunition to critique the team where I think you don't need to do that to find a way to pick at them, right? There's plenty of other opportunities there to do it.
But you still want to see a win against a viable quarterback. And the games that they've played against viable quarterbacks, they've lost. And the games that they've played against, Zach Wilson twice and Jacoby Brissett and Tua was a win. I'm sorry. Well, they even lost to Tua, who wasn't even like in this, Dolphin system yet. So again, it's just, it's tough to judge here because like you said, Kyler wasn't in the game, and Colt McCoy did come in, and they played well against Colt McCoy, and they beat their opponent. I'm with you that there's more to pick apart on this team than the defense because, again, they played well tonight. They've played well in spurts this season, and they're going to end up being the reason that this team can succeed because it's not their offense. There there was really 3 drives in this game that kind of turned the whole thing on its head.
Yep.
It was the DeAndre Hopkins punch out, which great play by Kyle Duggar. Kyle Duggar's a beast, and Hopkins was also not really holding on to the football too much. It looked like
Yeah, I
Shane
mean,
McCoy out there.
the credit there isn't so much for the play itself; it's the work he put in during the week. Right? He watches on
Right.
film. He acknowledged, okay, this is how Hopkins carries the ball. I'm going to have an opportunity here. Like that play was made Monday and Tuesday. That play
Exactly.
was made well before Sunday. That's really, but yeah, great play by Duggar.
Yeah. So that play happens. McMillan picks it up, scoops, and scores. It was at a tie game. It was 13-13. Turns into a 20-13 game. Following drive, Colt McCoy throws a pick. I can't remember if he got hit or not, but lands in Marcus Jones's breadbasket, basically. And then 2 plays, Patriots offense clicks for just the 2 plays they had to. Down the seam, Hunter Henry for like 35 yards. And then Pierre Strong scores, and 27-13, that's a game. So outside of those 3 drives, it was just a crazy, like, not even so much crazy, but it was just sort of a boring game of football that both teams looked like they had no idea what they were doing. And point being, the Patriots did what they had to for 3 drives. And so that's how you got to win a football game sometimes, and they did it. You look at it, and like the best offense is kind of a good defense at some point, and they were good enough tonight or last night.
Yeah, that kind of, you just said there, best offense, a good defense. It feels like if they're going to win games here down the stretch, if they are going to beat some of these good teams, that's the blueprint. Can the defense step up, make plays, make impact plays, flip momentum, and then can the offense at the very least capitalize when the defense gives them a chance? And they did that last night.
Right.
They scored off the turnover. They scored off the interception. They're scoring drive there. They almost botched the double score, but the defense gets a quick stop at the other end. They're able to move the ball down the field, get that first field goal, and then get the field goal on the other side of it. The question is, can they do it against better teams? And that's what we haven't seen them do. Well, they don't have a win against a quality quarterback. It's the overall opponent, right? I don't know that these lack of wins against these quarterbacks have been because of the defense. Mac throws 3 picks against Baltimore early in the season. There's a quality quarterback. Against Josh Allen, it was really just a play or 2 that cost them the drop interception and quitting when they thought he stepped out of bounds. Like, it's been mental errors more than that. So this is the style of football they want to play. What we saw them do against the Cardinals, where it's defense driven, defense creating offense, complementary football. But to do that, you don't have a large margin for error, and they've operated outside that margin for error for most of the year. And the offense has to take advantage of opportunities, which it has not done for the most part this year, and then it did last night. So that to me is my big takeaway from the game. In a perfect world, the way Bill Belichick's drawn it up and designed this roster, for better or worse, that's how they're trying to win games. Force turnovers, points off short fields, control the time of possession, control the field position, and just win ugly. Right? That's how they're built. And that's been a strategy in the NFL for a long time. That's nothing new. But again, you have to operate a certain way to win with that strategy. And they haven't been able to operate that way on a consistent basis. They did it last night. Now they need to do it against some better teams.
Right. Another thing I want to point out on the defense, and I guess on the offense and on special teams, is Marcus Jones. On one hand, I love it. I mean, the guy's a beast in all 3 phases of the game. Last night, I'm looking here, on defense, he had 8 tackles. He had an interception for an 18-yard return. He then had 2 kick returns, a punt return, 2 pass deflections on defense, and then he had a catch for 12 yards. They're using him in every single phase of the game. But at some point, you got to give the guy a breather, right? Like, again, it's good. And so I do, and you look, and I did just kind of try to dump on the defense, and I get what you're saying. It's a good thing. So it's hard to, fault them for playing Jones so much when he's making impactful plays. But you're going to burn this guy out in his first season. And you're putting him at risk to get hurt when he's a better corner than he is a damn wide receiver, obviously. Keep him in the kick and punt return game. But, we talked about it last week, too, and they kind of got Tyquan Thornton the ball more on offense. It was sort of, by process of elimination.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Down. Yeah, which we'll get to that in the offense, and we'll talk that through. But, Marcus Jones is a beast in every facet of the game. And, it's cool to see, but I think they need to kind of ramp him down on offense a little bit and just let him play defense, because he played really well on defense last night.
Yeah, you know how I feel about this, like them burning guys out, right? I love the idea that he can play both sides of the ball, and I actually think he should keep doing that. I think it makes it really tough to get. That's got to be incredibly tough to game plan for. because you don't know when you're going to see him, how much you're going to see him, right?
Right.
But they do need to be careful for it. And I think he played like 86 snaps last night. That's an
Yeah.
insane amount. So they might not be in a spot where they can cut back on the snaps on defense. I don't know. Maybe he might not have been supposed to play that much defensively last night.
Right.
And then obviously Jack Jones gets hurt. And
Right.
they're thin at corner. They're real thin at boundary corner. All their corners last night, or 3 of the 4, were 5'10" and under. Then you have Sean Wade, who really doesn't play that much,
Right.
getting out there. So the depth at corner was exposed, but yeah, they do really need to be careful about burning him out. The one other thing I want to point out about the defense, all right, so you want to win against a quality quarterback. What I'll tell you is this.
Yes, Alex, I do. They need to do it.
They finally had a good game against a star wide receiver, which I think is big as well. And DeAndre Hopkins' stat line on the night, 7 catches for 79 yards is fine, but 3 of those catches came on that final drive where the game was pretty much over. Like, it wasn't over, but it was over, and the Patriots were playing very conservatively, allow the catch, make the tackle right. Through the first 3 quarters, when that game was really up in the air, 4 catches for 53 yards for Hopkins. That's a great, considering they had rookies on him all night, from Jack Jones to Marcus Jones. Yep. It's a great performance. That's a great performance on him. A little concerned how bad they got beat, and it was very brief, but Robbie Anderson killed him in the slot. Killed him. Mm-hmm. And the Cardinals never really went.
Robbie Anderson had like 10 yards as a Cardinal going into this game, and he ended up toasting them on the inside. But
yeah, I don't know. They had that one drive where they kept going to him.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the drive that ended with the Hopkins fumble. They never went back to him. And I mean, that's a massive mismatch, him on Miles Bryant. So that's on Cliff. I'm a little surprised Cliff Kingsbury still has a job. I thought we were going to wake up this morning, he was going to be canned. Maybe with the Kyler injury, it's just a lot of change at once, and they don't want to do that to the roster right now, to the locker room right now. But yeah, they still got to figure out the speed out of the slot, whether it's putting Marcus Jones there, which I get maybe they couldn't have done last night due to the injuries, but they got to figure out a way to take some of these mismatches away from Miles Bryant. That's my biggest concern with the defense, is they still don't seem to be respecting speed at the receiver position in the way that they probably should, and it's burning them.
Yeah. You talk about just the cornerbacks and the injuries now. Jalen Mills was out. Jack Jones left the game. Chris Mason from Mass Live reported that he told him after the game that it was just a bruised knee and he should be okay.
Yeah, he tweeted he was fine too.
He tweeted a broken heart emoji, and everyone's like, "Oh no, what happened?" And then he followed that up.
That was weird.
Yeah, it was. Remember that happened earlier this season with Trent Brown too. Everyone was like, we thought Trent Brown was traded for like 8 minutes on Twitter. But so like you said, the corners are banged up. But it doesn't seem, none of them are really season ending, and so I feel like they can kind of piece it together here moving forward from the cornerback room. But again, these rookies and these second-year players, I tweeted it out, and I've started to write about it a little bit more. But Matt Rowe and the draft operation has been so much better over the last 2 years, and you saw it with the defense last night with Marcus Jones and Jack Jones, and you saw it on offense with the running backs too. Before we go to offense, do you have anything more on the defense? It felt like a good transition, but I mean, there's
they got to tackle better. They
do. Yeah.
It was kind of a one-off. They've been okay with that this year, but they got to like Juwan Bentley getting bowled over at the goal line can't happen. That he's there to make that play. So but again, that's a one-off. I don't know that that's necessarily, it was an issue early in the year. They've had it cleaned up pretty much since October. So, Josh Jacobs next week, that's a guy that's going to get downhill. It's a tough guy to tackle. So they've handled these guys that are tough to tackle the last couple of weeks until last night, but they got to snap out and get back to it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Before we get into the offense, though, let's just talk about our good friends over at LinkedIn, Alex, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We use LinkedIn Jobs here at CLNS Media. We can't recommend it enough. It's super easy to post your job, add your listing and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. As we inch closer to the end of the 2022 year and the end of the winter, it's the perfect time to add the right team member and end that year strong. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's talk about that offense, Alex, because again, it was just bad. And I mean, I was transitioning to it, so let's hit on the running back room now before we kind of get into the bigger picture. Because it's been a topic of discussion here so often where Damian Harris is hurt, and Ramondre's got to take on the load. And eventually, is he going to break? He's rolling. We ask him every week when we have him in the media room, how do you feel? How do you feel? I'm good. I'm good. I've taken care of myself. And not to say that last night was him not taking care of himself. He goes down with an injury, goes down with the ankle, leaves for the game. But the rookies come in strong, literally. Pierre Strong, 5 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. Kevin Harris, 8 for 26 and a touchdown. And for two guys who had barely taken a snap from the running back position, they were pretty good, and they mended the fence for the running game anyway last night. I thought it was impressive.
And they looked fine. Oh my God, who would have thought, right? That
running
these
backs
kids can actually
replaceable.
Play.
Yeah.
I'm just going to blow this up into my bigger theme for the game because it all ties in.
Do it.
Right. Their offense has been, this is what we were talking about last week after the Bills lost. The offense is too predictable. It's Ramondre Stevenson in the flat. It's Devontae Parker on a slant, or it's Jacoby Myers just on a curl, right? And that's it. Yep. That's 90% of their offense, and teams know it, and they're sitting on it. And they, despite the fact they have Kendrick Bourne, who's electric with the ball in his hands, Tyquan Thornton's speed, right? Damian Harris, who's a quality back. We weren't even talking about the rookies. We were trying to get Damian Harris more involved. Right? And they never went to it. And as guys started getting hurt last night, you just kind of had the thought of, well, what are they going to do? Right. These guys that they've refused to play are now their only option. And are they just going to essentially, not kneel it out, but just run an even more vanilla offense? Or are we actually going to get to see these guys make plays? And wouldn't you know it, Kendrick Bourne on design touches, making plays. 5 targets, tied for second on the team with Tyquan Thornton. And look, I don't love how they use Tyquan. He should be running vertically more, but I get it. The offensive line couldn't block. It's a good pass rush. It's a team that blitzes a lot, but they got him with the ball in his hands, with blockers in front of him. 3 of his 4 catches picked up first downs. That's Tyquan. The rookie running backs, Pierre Strong, speed, which they've needed, makes plays. Kevin Hitt, they don't look helpless out there, which it feels like is what the Patriots thought would happen. And there's some people today, including the former host of this show, one of the former hosts of the show, who want to give them credit for this. I won't give them credit for stumbling onto this by default. This was not the game plan. Kendrick Bourne was not supposed to be this involved. Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris were not supposed to be this involved. They were never going to be this involved. History tells us that. They were forced into it due to injuries. And I wouldn't be shocked, Mike. I don't know about you. I wouldn't be shocked if well, so let me, I'm not saying I wouldn't be shocked if Ramondre Stevenson and Devontae Parker are healthy next week. I don't know. But let's say they are, whenever those guys are healthy again, right? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked if they go back to the vanilla stuff they've been doing, and goodbye Kevin Harris, goodbye Pierre Strong, goodbye Tyquan Thornton, goodbye Kendrick Bourne. Mm-hmm. And I refuse to give him credit for doing what, one, everybody on the outside has acknowledged would work for 3 months, and 2, only turning to it because they had literally no other option, right? Short of putting more defensive players on the field on offense. So I'll say, I'll give them credit for this. Everybody wanted to joke about the screens, and yes, it was an absurd amount of screens. 12 screen passes was a career high for Mac Jones. But when your offensive line can't block, and you're facing a team that blitzes a ton, and you have a lot of speed on the field, that actually makes some sense to call a lot of screens. Now, they should have mixed in some other things, some draws, some RPOs, but that unit, right? We've been talking about this since the summer. Kendrick Bourne, you say what you want about Nelson Aguilar. He had a rough game last night. I will acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. But he's fast.
They targeted him 10 times. 10 times.
Well, because that was their first instinct, was he's the only guy on the field we trust. That's the guy they trust of everybody who played last night, throughout the game. But he's fast. He can't deny it. He's fast. The defense has to account for it. You
Right.
put Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton out there on the field, and you make Pierre Strong the running back on top of that. That's a lot of speed. That's hard to defend. You're going to force the defense to go light. You're going to force the defense to put two safeties up top. That opens up a ton of opportunities in the screen game, in the running game, in the short game where they really want to throw the football. We've been talking about this for months, and they only went to it by default. So, and it worked. It's frustrating because how much have they left on the table, right? By not doing this sooner. So that's what kills me with all of this. They should have turned to it sooner. I don't trust they're going to stay with it, assuming Parker and Stevenson return this year. But that is sort of what their offense should have been. And by the way, it's also sort of what they did with Bailey Zappi to an extent.
Right. I was just going to, that was my point. That was what I was coming in with.
It's just all really frustrating that, yes, it finally clicked. Mm-hmm. This was their plan Z. This was their, this was the last plan. This was their best. I don't want to say their best, but their offensive option that sort of unlocked things a little bit was their break glass in case of emergency option. And by the way, I'm not saying bench Ramondre Stevenson. That's not at all what I'm saying. No. I'm not saying bench Devontae Parker. I'm not saying bench Jakobi Meyers. But from the running back point of view, you see the wear and tear building on Ramondre, right? They have other guys, whether it be Damian Harris or the rookies, all three of whom can play. Ramondre Stevenson doesn't need a 98% usage rate. He doesn't. You can allow him to rest. You can put these other guys in the game, and they'll still get you where you need to go. And then you get a much fresher Ramondre Stevenson at the end of the game when you really need him. In terms of wide receivers, this goes back to something I've talked about since camp. The beauty of this group, and when I complimented this group, I always got knocked for it. Oh, they don't have a real number one. I know that. The beauty of this group is there's five guys with five very different skill sets, and you can mix them and match them and keep the defense off guard. When you're going with just Jakobi Meyers and Devontae Parker, you're really limiting yourself. You're taking that speed dynamic out. You're taking that yak dynamic out. If you mix those guys with Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton, right, you're going to create more looks that the defense has to account for, and you're not as predictable. Especially, by the way, if the offensive line can't block, which at this point is just a problem until the offseason. That's not getting fixed. They don't have the personnel in-house to do it. So, what's a way to work around that? Yards after catch guys. Get the ball to guys who you can get the ball out quick and they can still pick up chunk plays. That's not Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers is a find the sticks and sit down guy. Your yak guys are Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton, and Pierre Strong. So, and I know I'll let you go in a second. I can see you kind of bubbling over, but it was just so frustrating because we've been talking about this for months, and they finally did it, not because they wanted to, but because they had to.
Right.
And the hope is it was eye-opening, and we see, and the hope is, first of all, Parker and Stevenson come back as soon as possible. You don't want to rush a guy back, especially Parker with the concussion, but the hope is those guys come back. They integrate the whole thing together. They use their personnel to the maximum as they should be. And they kind of actually start to build something offensively here at the end of the season. Now, I don't know that will happen.
That's what I was just going to say.
My gut tells me it's going to be Ramondre Stevenson with the 98%, usage rate again as soon as he's healthy, and Jakobi Meyers with 15 targets again as soon as he's healthy, and Kendrick Bourne not playing again and all of that. But the pieces are there. The stuff that I've been yelling about and I'm yelling about right now.
The pieces have been there.
It's been there.
Exactly.
So, and sorry, one more thing, because I saw it in the comments.
Hit it.
Don't come at me about the quarterback. The quarterback made some plays last night when he had time.
The quarterback's damn good, guys.
Up the seam twice to Hunter Henry. That was a staple play last year. Disappears this year. And when they bring it back, they brought it back against Minnesota. They brought it back in that game. He looked good. He had the throw on the boundary to Nelson Aguilar, right? On that third down. It's a hell of a throw. The quarterback made
the throw.
So don't talk to me about the quarterback. Yes, they could use more talent on offense, but don't talk to me about a talent void on offense. The pieces are there, man. They just got to put them together.
Tua Tagovailoa doesn't make that sideline throw. I'll tell you that right now.
No, he doesn't. No, he does not.
So, like you said, you saw me bubbling over, and I was sort of I had some points, and then you would keep going, and then I would be like, well, how do I relate this to that? And so the point being here that I kind of wanted to just add to that is you don't give them credit for, you don't give the coaches credit for scheming up Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. You can't, because like you said, it was their break glass. But
Right.
go to someone, and I mentioned him earlier with the defense, and now you look at it on the offensive side again. It's Matt Groh, and it's the drafting that this team has done. They have guys in place that even when it is their plan Z, can come in and contribute, like a Bailey Zappi, who gets thrown into the fire and makes plays for this team and wins a few games for this team. And then
Right.
your best two running backs go down, and you got to rely on these draft picks in Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris. And that's not, it's not a Bill Belichick thing anymore. Bill Belichick struggled as a drafter, and Robert Kraft came out and said something's got to change. And then they finally made the change internally, and they put Matt Groh as they headed him up as, in the scouting and drafting department. And last year they had Elliott Wolf, and they had Dave Ziegler here before he left for
Right.
Las Vegas.
Well, they still have Elliott Wolf.
Well, they still have Wolf, and they still have Matt Groh. And
Yeah.
now these guys are coming in and they're playing right away, and they're succeding 2 years in a row.
When the coaches let them play right away, they're playing right away.
Exactly. I'm down on these coaches, but I'm high on this Matt Groh. I mean,
I'll say it, Mike. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment here, and I know like Josh Uche looks great right now, and Ramondre looks great right now. Matt Groh may be the best thing the Patriots have going for them right now.
100%.
And I mean that in a very positive sense, because if they do want to get back to the point where they're contenders, the draft has to be a part of it. They can add free agents, of course, but what you're seeing right now is kind of when it's free agency without the draft. And there's some young guys making plays, but they're still young, right?
Right.
You're seeing that 2021 free agency class, and that's kind of all you're counting on. If they can put together 3, 4, 5 of these drafts in a row,
yes.
Well, that's basically what they did from like 2009 to 2011, right? And then you saw these guys like Devin McCourty, Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins, Chandler Jones. Like you saw these guys on the 14 team, Joe Tooney, Shaq Mason, Shane Vereen, James White, like start to show up over that second dynasty. That was like 3 or 4 solid years worth of drafts. I would say they're at 2 right now. They're at 2 right now.
2 in a row. And it's
right. Can Matt Groh give him 2, maybe 3 more? I think he can. And if he can do that, and they don't ruin Mac, and the offensive line has to be a quick fix. But besides that, they're going to be in really good shape. Like I love the job Matt Groh's doing right now.
100%. It's in order, I think. Mac Jones, Christian Barmore, Ramondre Stevenson last year. This year, you have...
Yeah.
And then this year, it's Cole Strange, who... Say what you will, he was solid. He's been solid, and he's still a rookie, and, he has room to improve. But Cole Strange, immediate impact at some points. Tyquan Thornton, who they need to get integrated, but Tyquan Thornton has
when
potential.
They give him the ball, good things happen.
Exactly.
When they give him the ball.
Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, Bailey Zappi, and the 2 running backs you saw last night, Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris. That's like 5.
And let me just add, by the way, Brendan Schooler, DeMarcus Mitchell on special teams.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Undrafted guys too. It's like it's hitting and it's real, and it's a real thing with Matt Groh in the front office. The problem is the dang coaching, Alex, and we saw it last night.
Sorry, wait. Can I add one more? Can I add one more front office move they made? Because somebody put it in the chat. I just have to bring it up. I forgot about when we were talking about the defense.
Yep.
Jelani Tavaya.
Oh, I know.
They bring him in, and he's making plays.
Yeah. Well, the problem there is I think that's a Patricia decision, and I don't like that.
I know it is. I forgot to get that in when we were doing the defense. He made a good play last night. For $2 million, if he's making plays like that, that's a steal. Anyway, you were saying Matt Groh, excellent.
He's a good player. No, Groh's been excellent. But the thing that's not excellent is this coaching. And Mac Jones is once again blowing up on the sidelines and on the field. And I can't get a feel for sort of what the media and what fans think of it. But I love it. And it reminds me way too much of Tom Brady that I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you hate comparing him to Brady, and I get it. And he's not even close. He's a 500 quarterback, whatever, or a little over 500, blah, blah, blah. But it's clear that he's fed up, and it's so clear to me every single week this team plays that it is not Mac Jones' fault that this team is where they are and this offense is where they are, because he goes out there and he makes these plays, the throw on the sideline, and just there's so many. You can pick them apart. You can look at them on film, but the epitome of like the coaching staff and this offense was, despite them coming out with a double score, the end of the first half and then the beginning of the second half. Because the end of the first half, they have 2 timeouts left, 10 seconds left on like the 35-yard line, and they run the football. I mean, what are we doing? Like, seriously, that is
and
like,
run it out of the shotgun.
right. It's, what are we doing?
Sorry. Let me backtrack real quick. They get the ball with like 2:13 left and barely
Right.
get to the 2-minute warning before punting. Defense saves them. They get another shot.
Right.
This
That's
is
where the double score. Yeah. And then you pick it up again and you have a shot and you get in scoring range. 35 or 10 seconds left on the 35 going in. 2 timeouts and you run the football and you just try and play for a field goal. Like, you have 2 timeouts. Try and make a play. You have a quarterback who's playing pretty well for the circumstances around him, and you essentially, you're not punting, but you're just playing so conservatively. And it's like, it makes no sense. Why are you not trying to score a touchdown? They're so incapable of calling an offense. And it's Matt Patricia's fault, but it's not Matt Patricia's fault. It's Bill Belichick's fault because he's putting them in these situations. There's this talk about the hot seat. And I wrote about it last night. And it's, it could be prisoner of the moment, but it feels like there's something there to this whole, could they do something with Bill Belichick if something doesn't change? Because the buck stops with him, and something has to change on this offense because, like you said, Grove's been great. The offense or the defense is in a good spot. They have talent. Something has to change on this offense, and it has to happen sooner rather than later because you're going to either lose Mac's confidence, you're going to lose him as a player, or you're going to just continue losing football games.
Yeah, so as it comes to Belichick's job security, I just guessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would think he'd be given an opportunity where it's like, hey, you're a defensive guy.
Right.
Matt's a defensive guy. There needs to be a real offensive mind in charge of the, like, if like Matt's not going to be here, right? Matt
right.
Or Matt's, I could see a world, honestly, where he's still employed by the team, but they kick him back upstairs. He's just that senior football advisor, whatever. Right?
That's going to happen. Sorry to cut you off. He's not going to be not on this staff anymore.
Right.
He'll be somewhere in the building.
I could also see a situation where they being the team, the Crafts, go to him and say, Matt's not in charge of the offense anymore. Like,
right.
You can stay, you can either find somebody else or we can find somebody else, right? Like, I think that would be, and I can't imagine Bill Belichick would walk away. Like, Matt Patricia being his offense coordinator would be the hill he'd die on. As for the Mac Jones stuff, I'm Team Mac. I get, and I think he's more frustrated with the situation. Like, people are trying to make this like personal about Patricia.
No,
I don't think he's gonna like go egg Patricia's house or anything, right? I think he's frustrated with the situation.
Well, there was a video of them on the sideline talking it over after and laughing.
Yeah, and they hugged and whatever. Like, so Mac's an emotional guy. First of all, I don't know why
it's an emotional game.
I don't know why we're all like so aghast at this when the exact same thing happened last week. And by the way, it wasn't just Mac Jones. It was Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar. So I don't get that. I get why we're talking about it. It's good content. I don't get why people are acting so surprised about it. We just saw the same thing happen. It's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But I'm Team Mac. I'm all for him being frustrated with the situation. It's a frustrating situation. He's clearly not the only player frustrated with it, as we heard last week from Bourne and Aguilar. And, you want your leader to be on the same page with the rest of the locker room. And by the way, I love a quarterback that shows emotion and wears his emotion on his sleeve, positively or negatively. You know who else did that? The last guy, Tom. Well, the 2 guys go, but also the last guy, honestly. Cam Newton played very emotionally, and I loved that.
Yeah, Cam Newton did too, yeah.
For all his warts, it made him very fun to watch. And you know what? If Mac was just walking off the field emotionless, you know what all these people would be saying today? Well, he doesn't care. Oh, he doesn't care. Oh, you think he'd be upset about not moving the ball? No. Like, I want my quarterback to show emotion. You can quote me on that. I am on the record on that. I love that he cares this much. I sat here, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, and reamed out Zach Wilson for not giving a shit.
Yep.
I stand by that 100%. I loved it. Max fired up. I hope when they have success, he's as emotional in a positive sense as he's been the last 2 weeks when things aren't going well. That's what I want my quarterback to be. That's what I want my leader to be, right? Like, it's just, I think it's such a good trait that he cares this much. Nobody ever told Tom Brady to tune it down. And fine, Tom Brady's too above and beyond. You shouldn't compare him, to Tom Brady. There's other quarterbacks, like great quarterbacks, who showing emotion is a big part of what they do. Like, just Phillip Rivers is the first one that comes to mind. And
Yeah.
people, he didn't win a Super Bowl. He was a good player, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Phillip Rivers played with a ton of emotion. I'm trying to think, off the top of my head right now, Russell Wilson's.
Cam Newton's the good example. Cam Newton was
Cam
an MVP in
Newton.
this league, and he played really good, solid quarterback play. And his whole thing is his moxie and his attitude and his care for the game. It's like that's a thing that you want in your quarterback,
confident.
Right?
You have to be that confident. And I mean, Stafford's another guy who plays with a ton of emotion. You saw him last week or last year win a Super Bowl, right? Drew Brees was another guy who played very emotionally. Ben Roethlisberger was another guy who played very emotionally. Somebody who doesn't play with a lot of emotion, by the way, and I didn't even think I was going to go down this road, but I'll use it while I have it. Jimmy Garoppolo, a stone-faced quarterback, just walking off the field. That's the guy that doesn't care.
Nah, you're reaching. Jimmy plays with some swagger. He's a guy. He laughs and he's I don't.
I've never seen him get mad like that. He'll play with emotion when they're winning.
Mad. Yes, that's a good point.
I've never seen him get mad. Like, he didn't get mad. He quit. Remember, he tried holding out. He tried leaving because it wasn't going his way.
Conversation for another day.
It is. I didn't intend to go that way, but
no, I know.
I want my quarterback to play with emotion. I do.
Right.
And Mac does it, and it's great. I would not tell him to change it. I wouldn't. If that's the way he plays, if that's what's going to fuel him, let it fuel him.
I'm with you. And people think it's a bad thing, and it's really, I mean, again, if he's cussing out players and like flipping out, like, and it's like negatively impacting the game, then that's one thing. But it hasn't, and it shouldn't, because again, it's not. He's
not chewing out his wide receivers or anything like
right.
That's
he's
different.
getting right. Exactly. He's not talking down on anyone. He's like,
right.
He's pissed off and he wants this thing to frickin' work, and it hasn't, and it's come to a point. Last thing here is just, the offensive line. They only let up one sack, but Mac, there was pressure in his face all game.
That's misleading.
And so misleading. There was pressure all over him.
If anything, that's another feather in Mac's cap that there was only one sack in that game. Good for Mac.
Seriously, he was getting away. There was one play where it was Orlovsky broke it down. I go to him like the Bible on some of these film breakdowns. Yeah. And it was a simple 5-man protection. 5 guys. They were not doing any sort of like clouding or what did the Patriots call it when they would just have like the amoeba? There was no amoeba this play. It was 5 down linemen, 2 linebackers behind them, and they rushed 5, and the offensive line 5-on-5 had no idea what to do. Connor McDermott doubles down for no reason when David Andrews down blocks and McDermott down blocks on the same guy, and then Isaiah Simmons comes free, and Mac gets away with it, so that's not a sack, but Mac gets away and throws the football away. But it's like, if you can't even scheme up the basic 5-man front with 2 backers on 5-on-5, no free rushers. It's not like it was a blitz and you're throwing off the backer. It was, they just couldn't block 5-on-5, and it's bad. It's really bad, and it's not going to get better this season. And it like you said, it has to be the quick fix for next season if you don't want to lose Mac and his confidence anymore.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I actually talked to Ross Tucker when I was at the Army-Navy game. He played for the Patriots in 2005 as an offensive lineman when Matt Patricia was the assistant offensive line coach. He's one of the few players outside of those on this team who were coached by Matt Patricia offensively. And I asked him about what Patricia was like. He's great. Tucker actually worked very closely with him because he came in during the season, and Patricia was the one who got him caught up to speed. Well, Scar was working with the team getting ready for the week and all that. And he said, yeah, it feels like a big jump. This is Tucker talking about Patricia. It feels like a big jump for a guy who's never called offensive plays to go right to it. He said he probably could have been the offensive line coach. He probably could have been, even just a positional coach. Or an advisor or a quality control coach when we're calling plays a bit much. And they said, especially when the offensive line isn't very good. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, he's also the offensive line coach. And Tucker said, no, it's too much. So, not to dogpile on Patricia. And this is probably more of a Bill critique than a Patricia critique. Patricia's just in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. No, the offensive line looks bad. The guy coaching him's in well over his head. So, right. And then on top, but there's more to it than just that. I mean, they don't have one of the tackle spots, whichever way they want to do it, because they move guys around they don't have. Between Isaiah Wynn, Connor McDermott, Yadni Kajust, they don't have a starting tackle on one side. Right. Trent Brown was fine to start the season. Ever since he got this illness, ever since the bye, it's been bad. It's really been ugly. He doesn't look like he belongs out there. He's got to figure it out. Like, I'm a big fan of his. I think he's tremendously talented. I don't think he's cooked, but he looks cooked. He looks like a guy who should retire. So it's not going to get better. We talked about this before. It's just not going to get better this year, and they can adjust it, in the offseason. I'm working on for 98.5thesportshub.com, 10 players to watch in the college football playoff. 3 of them are tackles, and they're going to need to go that road. But in the meantime, it's quick throws, yards after the catch, screens, things like that just are going to hide as much as you can.
Yeah.
RPOs with the offensive lines doing, but I think you can, that's the hardest position, especially tackle specifically. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest position to hide a deficiency at in this league. I actually think it's harder to hide a deficiency at tackle than it is to hide a deficiency at quarterback. Look what's going on with the Niners right now, right?
The way offenses are called in this, in this day and age, and the way it runs, it's you might be right there.
Yeah. Because if you can block it, if you can get it blocked, and you can get, even if you don't have a great quarterback, if you can get him time and you can make it paint by number, you might not have the most exotic offense. You're not going to break any scoring records, but this is what the Niners offense is predicated on, right? Is
back
we're just going to make it
just
simple
keep going
and
back
easy.
to Jimmy.
No, but even like now with
true.
Brock Purdy, how they're winning games, right? And you see, the Dolphins are another example. Everybody points to acquiring Tyreek Hill as the reason for the turnaround. He's a big part of it. You know who else a big part of it? They got Teron Armstead back. That's been his presence has been a massive game changer for them. So you got to have a tackle. They don't have a tackle right now. They're not going to have a tackle for the rest of the season. It's just not going to happen. We'll deal with that in the offseason, but that doesn't mean that they can just throw their hands up and say, well, this is a good season, guys. Let's pack it in. Like, they got to figure out ways to make it work as it exists right now, and hopefully they add a tackle in the offseason and move on from there. But yeah, the offseason, the offensive line was not good, and it continues to be a problem.
A couple college football mentions in there. So before we put a bow on this, and before we do our quick college football minute, I do want to talk about our new sponsor at Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost right now? Because you look at it and it's pretty crazy. You probably don't know that 80% of people have subscriptions that they completely forget about. Most Americans think they spend $80 a month on subscriptions when actually it's closer to $200. Amazon Prime, ESPN Plus, Hulu, whatever the case may be, you're sharing them with people, you're sharing them with your cousins. They're draining your bank account. You could be wasting hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions that you don't even know about. I don't do this anymore, Alex, and that's because I use Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. The app shows you all your subscriptions in one place and then cancels for you whatever you still don't want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Seriously, it could save you hundreds of dollars a year. That's rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. You can see it right below us, rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat.
I want to add one more thing on this game here before we totally put the bow on it.
Totally.
They got to figure out the punt unit.
Yes.
They had that one game, oddly enough, in the wind against the Jets, Pilardi's debut, where he looked great. He had an average net punt last night, net yardage, 32.7.
Yeah.
And 2 touchbacks and a shank will do that. And one of the touchbacks was a mistake by Matthew Slater. I can't even believe I'm saying that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess you just
right
sort
on the
of be
line.
like, after, what is this, year 14, 15, 16 for him? Right? After 15 years, he was bound to make one mistake eventually. But Jake Bailey's eligible to come off IR this week. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that.
Well, when Bailey went out and Pilardi came in and he had that really good game, we were saying that Bailey might be done here because Pilardi was just going to take it and run, but they've struggled. So yeah, again, Patriots win. A win's a win. I do put it in quotes. It's tough. Again, they're the 7 seed, right? So 7 seed, you have the opportunity to win out and get yourself in the playoffs, and then anything can happen. But they still have a lot to work on, and yeah, I mean that's really that. There's these 2 games against Arizona and Vegas. We said you have to win them, and then you figure out the next 3 after, because these are the winnable ones. You got done with one, you got it, get the W and chalk it up. get on to the next one and see what happens. So
Right.
that's what the Patriots do. They win 27-13 out in Arizona. Let's do a college football minute here, Alex. And it's a bit of a somber one, but it's got to be talked about, and it's too bad. But Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach passed away last night, at the age of 61. Former Texas Tech head coach, former Washington State head coach, currently, or was the Mississippi State head coach. He had a heart attack earlier this week and ends up passing away last night at age 61. Mike Leach, a legend in college football space, an innovator of the air raid offense, always good on a hot mic, always had a good answer for everything. Just innovative, and you see all these concepts in the NFL now and in college, and spreading guys out, and you talk about it. You had talked about it here on the College Football Minute, just what Tennessee does with Hendon Hooker, and they spread him out and they use the entire 52 and a third field. That starts with a guy like Mike Lynch, and it's just too bad he's gone way too soon.
Yeah, I mean, first off, thoughts with his family and those close to him in the Mississippi State program. A massive loss. You talk about people who are one of one. I mean, Mike Leach defined being one of one, and in really in two ways. I mean, as a college football coach, as a football mind. First off, he's one of the very few coaches who didn't play football in college.
Right.
He was a rugby player, played football as a rugby player, left to get his law degree. And he got his master's, he got his law degree, and then he started coaching high school football as an offensive line coach. Like, he really didn't have a background in it. And you wonder maybe if that's kind of how he saw the game differently. He's able to create this new offense with Hal Mumme at Kentucky, and it really comes from a guy named Mouse Davis, who Mumme had worked for. And those are the three guys when you talk about the air raid offense. And teams just didn't like we think now a quarterback throws the ball 50 times, especially in a college offense, big deal. That was so unheard of. And I saw somebody say today, from 7-on-7 high school football to the 2007 Patriots, Mike Leach's fingerprints are on those teams. And it's really true. The air raid offense, when teams realize you could throw the ball like that, when teams realize you could throw the ball in quick succession, when throwing the ball didn't have to be about picking up big gains, right? Force the defense to go small, force the defense to keep up with you in terms of speed. Massively, massively revolutionary. You look at all the NCAA passing records, pretty much all of them were set, under Mike Leach, either as an offense coordinator or as a head coach, or guys from his coaching tree. By the way, an impressive coaching tree from Sonny Dykes, Gary Patterson, Lincoln Riley, coached with him at Texas
Even
Tech.
look at a guy, Cliff Kingsbury last night. Say
Cliff
what you will
Kingsbury.
about Kingsbury. Coached him at Tech, and then he moves on to be a head coach in the NFL. So keep going.
So just and I would encourage everybody to go read up on kind of Mike Leach's coaching tree, both the tree he came from and his tree, and the history of the air raid offense. And it's all very fascinating. And it really, a lot of the modern offense we talk about, all the things we're sitting here red in the face saying we want the Patriots to do, that all goes back to concepts Mike Leach and Hal Mumme put together at Iowa Wesleyan, and then later on at Kentucky with Tim Couch as the quarterback. And then there's the other side of it. Then there's Mike Leach, the person who, again, just didn't approach being a football coach like anybody else did. Like, he was a true football guy, but he also really didn't, it wasn't about football for him. Everybody knows about the Pirates. He had a big statue of a pirate in his office. He's fascinated by pirates, swing the sword, but you could ask him about anything in an interview. If you just go on Twitter, there's so many good clips today, from
it's amazing,
the Pac-12 mascot battle to his advice on weddings, to him talking about his players' girlfriends, to the candy quotes, coffee, him talking about his own death, like on a 60-minute or on a 60 interview. There's a great 60 Minutes piece with him. 60
Jeremy
Minutes
Scott,
just put up on YouTube today. Just a really fascinating individual. And the way he viewed the game, it was all, he approached the game both personally and from an X and O's point of view in a way nobody ever has. His players loved playing for him. It yielded results. He went to, as a head coach in 21 years, 19 bowl games, which I know people think everybody makes a bowl. They really don't. That's an insanely impressive number, especially when you consider the programs he was at. Like, Texas Tech was a nothing program before he got there. That was the fourth, maybe fifth school in Texas, Washington State was the third school in the Pacific Northwest. Mississippi State really was probably the second school in Mississippi in terms of football. And he won. He won everywhere, and he made fans everywhere, and his players loved him. The media loved him. Nobody had a bad thing to say about the guy. So just, again, one of one kind of person, a instrumental football mind, an electric personality in a sport that's, I talk about this all the time in the sicko stuff, right? Sicko football and how college football is so great because it's so weird and it's so different and so unique. In a sport chock full of big personalities, I mean, Mike Leach is at the top of that.
He's it, yeah.
And on top of that, be an incredible coach, just an absolute titan, gone too soon. And the game is lesser today and will be lesser moving forward by him no longer being in it.
Yeah, you talk about the tree and the guys that have come under him, and you can look back on it, but even Cliff Kingsbury, right? He's the guy. He was the guy at the first, not the first, but a Texas Tech quarterback who was like throwing the ball over the yard. But then he goes to Houston, and he runs this system with Case Keenum, who breaks all the college football records. But then Lincoln Riley sprouts out, and then Lincoln Riley has Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Caleb Williams. So it's like his fingerprints. It truly is. They're all over. And you talk about that as a football mind, but then again, we'll wrap it on Leach here because you look through his Twitter account, right, and just reading the things he retweets and sends, and it's from even last week talking about their bowl game, like they're going to allow us with cowbells, like, and then all of a sudden he tweets a random history quote, and his pinned tweet, it's phenomenal, and it meshes his impact on the game just with his huge personality, and it's a quote from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and the quote is, "If he is superior in strength, evade him. If the forces are united, separate them. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected." And he says that is what encapsulates the air raid offense, and that's the air raid offense philosophy. So it's like it's crazy. It's too bad he's gone. He said it in his E60, and another thing that encapsulates Mike Leach in his personality is Jeremy Schapp in the E60 asks him, like you said, what do you want to be remembered for, and what do you want your obituary to say? And he just looks at him and goes, "That's not my problem. I'm going to be dead." Like he's just the dry humor, the everything, the fingerprints on football. It's just gone too soon.
And look, the piece is 10 years old, but I would encourage everybody to go watch the 60 minutes clip. It's like 10, 11-minute clip on YouTube. 60 minutes and it does a great job of both showing who he was as a person and what the air raid offense really changed in the game of football. Also, why it's called the air raid offense. I never knew this. When they were at Iowa Wesleyan, there was literally a guy who bought an air raid siren at a yard sale and would play it in the stands every time they scored, to the point where like the refs had to ask him to stop because they were scoring so much, which is an incredibly Mike Leach story.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, there's a great 60 minutes piece on him. I'm actually going to tweet it out once we get done with the show. I meant to do it earlier, but I would encourage people to go check that out.
Do it. Yeah. So again, Mike Leach, gone way too soon, dies at 61 years old, was with Mississippi State, football historian, just a legend. But so let's transition into another college football topic real quick before we get out of here, because Alex, you were down in Philadelphia this past weekend for Army Navy. Looked amazing. First time the game ever goes to overtime. So what happened down there? What'd you see? If you have a quick anecdote on just how that experience was, because I haven't heard from you yet. We haven't had the conversation, so let's talk. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean it was unbelievable, and so I was down there kind of getting a feel of what it's going to be like, because the game is here next year. It's in Foxborough, and I couldn't be more excited. I mean, I know casual football fans dismiss it. Oh, it's triple option. It's low scoring. Like neither team is a contender. No. It feels like, as somebody who's been to big time SEC football games, it feels every bit the part of a big time college football game. It feels like a playoff game. Like the environment is electric. The week leading up to it, there's all this stuff going on. I mean, I was there Friday, but Friday, the whole city's abuzz with it. And then you get to the stadium on Saturday, and there's tanks out front, and There's these massive crowds, this massive tailgate. The stadium's all done up. There's like a 3-hour pregame ceremony from both academies. It's really powerful. March on when the cadets and the midshipmen walk on the field and go into the stands. The crowd's electric. This is one of the coolest things I've ever done. So I was in the press box for most of the game.
Yep.
But we actually got to go down on the field with about 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And then overtime. And I don't know that I've ever been more excited for a team to choose a direction in overtime. So we're behind one of the end zones. And I mean, I'm thinking like, oh, they're obviously going to go towards the cadets and the midshipmen. Nope. We were on the other end. They came towards us. And that building, I mean, I've covered playoff games. I've covered playoff games at Gillette, like not last year's, like a real Tom Brady was here playoff game.
Yep.
Felt like that. I mean, the building was electric. The players are getting into it. The fans are getting into it. It's that, like, if you're somebody who just loves the game of football for like the culture of it, right?
Yeah.
If you're somebody who appreciates football for not just fantasy and not just, oh, I want to see 70-60 and in that, like, if you're somebody who appreciates the history of the game, the culture of the game, the art of the game, dare I say, you would love Army Navy. The catch-22 is that people who appreciate the game that much already know what Army Navy is all about, I think. But getting to go in person, like, there's just another level to it that's really hard to put into words. That you can tell it's a special moment. You can tell the entire game is a special moment. It feels special being there, and it's a great game. First ever Army Navy to go to overtime. Gutted for, and I'm blanking on his name, but the running back for Navy fumbled on the goal line, and then Coach Ken gets let go after 16 years.
Crazy.
You know, really, really a game that had a lot of implications for that Navy program, but just an unbelievable game. Unbelievable game, unbelievable football environment. A+, 12 out of 10, 5 stars. Like, if you love football, like if you're not just some casual fantasy player, like if you're somebody who's a football junkie, that game will scratch your itch.
Because of Alex, our guy Liam appreciates the football.
Liam, that means a ton. That's really that's what I love about the show more than anything else. I love the opportunity that I get to share my love of football with other people and hopefully kind of get other people to appreciate football on that level. So thank you so much. That means a ton.
That's why I put it up. I figured that. But again, that's going to be here next season in Foxborough. So I'm looking forward to hopefully doing some coverage, out in Foxborough for that. That's going to be outstanding. Awesome that you were able to go check that out. Yeah. We'll have it here. So good story again. Last piece of college football is, and we'll wrap it up because we're at our hour mark, and we could do, like we've said it a million times, we could do our own college football podcast. But Caleb Williams wins the Heisman for USC on Saturday. Max Duggan comes in second. I believe it was C.J. Stroud in third, and Stetson came in fourth. I did think that Duggan had a chance as the last weekend happened, but turns out Caleb Williams, it's recency bias after the whole TCU and Max Duggan overtime game happens and Caleb Williams loses. But when you take a step back and you look at the whole body of work, Caleb Williams was the best player in college football this season, and he wins Lincoln Riley's third Heisman Trophy for a quarterback behind Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and now Caleb Williams. So he just churns them out at this rate, and Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner.
So the only reason I thought Duggan had, and look, I love Max Duggan, but I thought the best thing he had going for him was the voters are all old. They don't stay up late. Guys on the West Coast never win it. And I thought they got the first three right in order. I'm on the record as saying Stetson should have been nowhere near New York. I would have gone Corum, Hendon Hooker ahead of him. And Bryce Young, I think, even finished ahead of Corum, which I would have gone the other way on that one. But Caleb Williams deserved it. He won it. Good for him. Good for Lincoln Riley. Just keeps trying out Heisman winners. Yeah. Now he's going to, Caleb Williams, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him now because it's all lining up with Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, where plays for Lincoln Riley, as the Heisman, as an underclassman, first overall pick, we think, with Caleb Williams, and he's going to have to prove that he's different than those two guys. I think he is. Yeah. But I think he's up for it. I think he's up for the test, and I'm really excited. Even though Max didn't win it, I'm really excited to see him in the playoff. I think that's going to be a fun game.
That was a cool little during Caleb Williams' speech. Actually, he looked down at the other three quarterbacks and he goes, I'm up here, standing here, but the three of you get to play in the college football playoff next weekend, so it's kind of a catch-22 or next month.
Right.
So that was a good moment. He's a for all the crap he gets for writing the profanities on his fingers, and he's awesome. He's a good dude. He speaks well, and again deserved the Heisman Trophy. So wins Lincoln Riley's third, and again, he's gonna have to fall in that path behind, like you said, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray. So I think he's up for it as well. He's a monster. So he has another season before he ends up in the draft anyway. But yeah, good stuff. Good college football minute here. Let's wrap it. Patriots again win out in Arizona on Monday night. They are 7-6 now. They are in last place in the AFC playoff picture. That didn't sound right. They're not in any sort of last place. They're the first team. They're the back end of the AFC playoff picture, 7 seeds. So they control their own destiny moving forward. They will play the Vegas Raiders on Sunday afternoon um, in Las Vegas. That'll be another big game. They gotta keep getting these wins, Alex, and to kind of control their own destiny here. So we'll see what happens. We'll be back on Thursday to preview that game, and then we'll be back obviously after the weekend to break it down. So until then, you can follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Read all his stuff on 985 The Sports Hub. Make sure you check out his Twitter and watch that Mike Leach thing too, because fascinating stuff. So you can follow myself on Twitter at Mike Kadlick and read my stuff on CLNS Media. Again, until Thursday, we will see you all next time, and thanks for watching.